Welcome to Global Tech English.
There is something quietly powerful about the moment when someone asks you to talk about yourself. It happens all the time. In a job interview, at a new company, on a first call with someone you have never met before, or simply when a new colleague joins the team and smiles at you and says, "So, tell me a little about yourself." And for a moment, you pause. Not because you don't know who you are, but because putting yourself into words, in another language, is its own kind of skill. It takes practice. It takes comfort. And it takes time. Today, we are going to spend that time together. Slowly. Comfortably. Without any rush. My name is Sarah. And I want to walk you through the natural way that people talk about themselves in English, in modern professional settings, in casual conversations, in the digital workplaces that so many of us live in today. Let's start where most conversations start. The beginning. When someone asks you to introduce yourself, the most important thing is not to be perfect. The most important thing is to be clear. To be warm. And to give the other person a sense of who you are, not your entire life story, but a small, honest window. In English, a simple professional introduction often starts with your name, your role, and one thing about your work or background that feels relevant. Something like this. Hi, I'm Sarah. I work in communications, mostly digital content and remote team coordination. I've been doing this for a few years now, and I really enjoy the mix of writing and working with people from different places. Notice what that did. It was simple. It was natural. It didn't try to impress anyone. It just gave a clear, honest picture. Let's slow that down a little more. The first part was the name. Hi, I'm Sarah. That's it. Short. Warm. Direct. In most professional conversations, you don't need to say my name is, it sounds a little formal. I'm Sarah feels more natural, more human. Then came the role. I work in communications. Not I am a communications specialist with 7 years of experience in cross-functional digital strategy. Just, I work in communications. Clean. Easy to follow. And then, one small, personal detail. I enjoy the mix of writing and working with people from different places. That one line does something important. It shows personality. It opens a door for the other person to connect with you. Maybe they also enjoy writing. Maybe they also work with international teams. Suddenly, there's a conversation. This is what good self-introduction does. It doesn't just state facts. It creates connection. Let's think about the morning for a moment. Imagine it is 8:45. You have a team call at 9. You've made your coffee, you've opened your laptop, and you've checked your messages. There is one new notification, a message from someone on a different team who wants to set up a short call to collaborate on a project. They don't know you yet. You don't know them. And the first thing that will happen on that call is an introduction. In modern remote work, this happens constantly. New collaborations. New projects. New people joining a meeting for the first time. And every time, someone has to speak first. If that someone is you, what do you say? You start with your name. You mention your role in simple terms. You say one thing about what you're currently working on. And if the moment feels right, you add one small human detail. Hi everyone, I'm Sarah, from the content team. I'm currently working on some internal communication projects, so I'm really glad we have a chance to connect. I'm based in Lisbon, though I work with teams across a few different time zones. That introduction took about 15 seconds. And in those 15 seconds, something happened. A name was learned. A role was understood. A location was mentioned, which, in remote work, matters more than people realize. And a small feeling of warmth was created. Warmth is not a small thing in professional communication. It is, in many ways, the whole point. Let's sit with that a little longer. When we talk about ourselves in English, especially in professional settings, there are a few patterns that come up again and again. And the beautiful thing about these patterns is that once you know them, they feel effortless. They become part of how you speak. One of the most natural patterns is talking about your current work. Not your entire career history. Just what you're doing now. What your days look like. What you spend your energy on. In English, we often use the present continuous for this. I'm working on. I'm currently leading. I'm focusing on. These phrases feel immediate. They feel alive. They say, this is where I am right now, in this moment. And that present tense energy matters in conversation. It's not about the past. It's not a resume. It's a living, current version of who you are. I'm currently working with a small team on a new onboarding process for remote employees. I'm focusing a lot on content strategy right now, specifically how we communicate updates to a global audience. I'm leading a cross-functional project at the moment, which is a new experience for me, and honestly, I'm learning a lot from it. Notice that last one. I'm learning a lot from it. That small addition, that moment of honesty, makes the sentence feel human. It doesn't pretend everything is perfectly managed. It says, I'm in it, I'm growing, I'm real. People respond to that. In professional conversations, especially in modern work culture, vulnerability and honesty are not weaknesses. They are actually signs of confidence. Now let's talk about background. Because sometimes, in a longer introduction, or in a more personal conversation, someone will ask you where you're from, or how you got into your field, or what your path looked like. And again, the most important thing is not to recite a timeline. It's to tell a small story. Something like this. I started out in education, actually. I spent a few years teaching before I moved into corporate communications. It was a big shift, but a lot of the skills transferred: listening, explaining things clearly, working with people who have very different backgrounds. That's a background. Not a list of dates and job titles. A small human arc. A beginning. A change. A connection between the past and the present. In English, some of the most natural phrases for talking about your background are: I started out in, this tells where you began. I spent a few years doing, this gives a sense of time without being too precise. I moved into, this describes a transition, a shift, a new direction. I ended up in, this is a softer way to describe how you arrived somewhere, as if it was partly by choice and partly by chance. That last one is especially interesting. I ended up in content strategy almost by accident. It's casual. It's a little humble. And it immediately invites curiosity. The other person wants to know, what happened? How did you get there? And that is what the best self-introductions do. They leave a small open door. A gentle invitation for the conversation to continue. Let's pause here for a moment and think about something. There is a difference between introducing yourself in a formal setting, a job interview, a large team meeting, and introducing yourself in a more relaxed professional moment. A one-on-one call. A small team stand-up. A casual Slack message that turns into a video call. In formal settings, you tend to be more structured. More precise. You think about what to include and what to leave out. In informal settings, you can be more fluid. More conversational. More like talking to a person than presenting to an audience. In English, the language shifts slightly depending on the setting. Formal, my name is Sarah. I'm the content lead for the EMEA region, and I've been with the company for 3 years. Informal, hey, I'm Sarah, I do content stuff for the Europe and Middle East teams. Been here about 3 years now, which still surprises me. Same person. Same information. Different register. And that word, register, is one of the most useful concepts in language learning. Register is simply the level of formality you choose for a particular situation. Knowing how to shift your register, how to be formal when needed and relaxed when appropriate, is one of the most valuable communication skills there is. You develop it by listening. By paying attention to how other people speak in different situations. And by giving yourself permission to experiment. Which is exactly what you're doing right now. The afternoon has settled into that quiet hour when the inbox slows down and the notifications become less urgent. There is one more kind of self-introduction worth talking about. And it might be the most personal one. What do you say when someone asks, "What are you interested in?" Or "What do you do outside of work?" Or even, "What kind of person are you?" These questions can feel surprisingly hard. Not because we don't know ourselves, but because talking about our personal lives in another language requires a different kind of courage. In English, there are some beautiful, natural ways to talk about who you are beyond your job title. Outside of work, I spend a lot of time reading, mostly nonfiction, but occasionally a novel that pulls me in completely. I'm someone who really values routine. My mornings are important to me. Coffee, a little quiet time, and then I'm ready for the day. I've been learning Spanish for about 2 years. Very slowly. But I enjoy the process. Notice what those sentences have in common. They're specific. They mention a detail that feels real, nonfiction, but occasionally a novel. Very slowly. But I enjoy the process. These small qualifications make the language feel human. They suggest that you are a person with complexity, not just a list of hobbies. And specificity, that level of honest detail, is one of the most powerful tools in spoken English. Anyone can say I like reading. But I've been reading a lot of nonfiction lately, mostly about how people make decisions under pressure. That tells a story. That creates a conversation. That makes the other person think, "Oh, that's interesting. I want to know more." The goal of talking about yourself is not to recite information. It's to create a sense of connection. To give the other person something to hold on to. A detail. A feeling. A small shared understanding. And in a world where so much communication happens through screens, through emails, through video calls, through quick messages and brief check-ins, that human connection matters more than ever. When you talk about yourself in English, you are not just sharing facts. You are building a relationship. One sentence at a time. Let's think about how all of this fits together. Because sometimes the most useful thing is not a list of phrases, it's a feeling. A sense of how the whole thing flows. You start with something simple and warm. Your name. Your role. A brief sense of where you are right now. You add a little texture, something about your background, how you got here, what has shaped you. And then, if the conversation allows, you open a small personal window. Something that makes you real. Something that says, I am a person, not just a professional. That rhythm, simple, then textured, then personal, works in almost every situation. A job interview. A networking call. A new team introduction. A casual conversation with a colleague you've just met. And the beautiful thing is that the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. The words stop feeling like words and start feeling like you. That is the real goal of language learning. Not to translate your thoughts from one language to another. But to feel, eventually, that you can think in that language. Dream in it, a little. Reach for it instinctively when you need it. You are already doing that. Right now, by listening. By absorbing. By allowing the rhythm of the language to settle quietly into your mind. Some days, the most important thing you can do for your English is simply listen. Without pressure. Without a pen in your hand. Without a quiz waiting at the end. Just listen. Like you're sitting in a quiet cafe, and someone nearby is having a conversation in English, and it sounds warm and familiar, and you understand more than you expected to. That feeling, that quiet confidence, is what you're building. One episode at a time. I'm Sarah. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I hope your English feels a little more like home.